Hi everyone, my name is Anoush Chohilli. I'm in my final year of my Bachelor of Construction Management at Western Sydney University, and I'll be talking about measures to minimise incidents on construction sites in Australia. So a bit of introduction. Why the Australian construction industry and why safety? Well, the Australian construction industry is a large contributor to the global domestic product and is rapidly growing. Now, why safety in particular for this presentation? Well, the safety is one of the biggest items that we need to look at for the construction sites due to being one of the highest fatality rates in Australia, many unsafe behaviours occurring. Incidents are always going to be inevitable as workers can make mistakes, and short work schedules often result in more unsafe behaviours. So this presentation is going to look at measures that we can implement on our sites to reduce those fatalities or incidents occurring. So the current safety, serious incidents have dropped approximately 31% from 2001-2002 period to 2011 to 2012 period. So in future, this looks like it's going to continuously decline, and in the future, more practices will be used to minimize these incidents. The current measures that we implement are the Australian Work Health and Safety Strategy 2012 to 2022, 3D and 4D technology, safe work method statements, safety culture, using personal protective equipment or PPE, and tool improvements or material improvements. So a bit about safety culture and safety climate. Safety culture is defined as a group and individual values, attitudes, perceptions, competencies, and patterns of behaviors that determine the style and proficiency in work. Safety climate ties directly into safety culture, as it is defined as the shared perceptions of safety policies and procedures. So the vagueness of the term safety culture is probably one of the biggest issues regarding this item. For example, what's safe in our environment couldn't be safe in another person's environment. So that vagueness sort of needs to be clarified in terms of the Australian safety market, Australian work health and safety. So a bit about safe work method statements. They're one of the main documents used to guide safe work practices on work sites. So they pretty much use a risk matrix to assess the outcomes of any operations or works that they undertake on sites. As you can see on the image down here, it basically shows a high risk level and how to minimize that or how to reduce the risk of that happening. However, safe work method statements are not a legal requirement to enter sites yet. Personal protective equipment, PPE as it stands, is your hard hats, eye shields, gloves, steel cap boots, masks, and ear protection. Significantly prevents and reduces injury. The correct use of PPE ensures that there's less injuries for the personnel, and is trying to be further enforced on construction sites. PPE is a way to protect yourselves from any incidents actively hurting you. There's also the technology advancements in PPE, which can include the steel cap boots originally being made with a steel toe cap to being made now with a fiberglass or a plastic toe cap. So when they actually, the boots, get under pressure, instead of actually cutting your toes off, the actual plastic will bend or crack, so you'll get less risk or less harm to your feet. technology and design advancements. So this is probably one of the newest plays in how we minimize incidents, 3D and 4D technology. So with 4D technology, it'll pretty much give us a real-time look at how we're going to complete this project, where the highest risk tasks are, and how we're going to actually complete these tasks. How we're going to, for example, install the crane on one side, and how we're going to move about it, how we're going to, work safely around that. And being in real time, you'll be able to, identify where the main hazards will be, etc. Now, the issue with this at the current stage is it's being implemented slowly into construction industry. And if it was implemented too fast, a lot of resources will be depleted trying to, quickly turn over to this. The next thing we're going to talk about is the materials involvement or materials improving to minimize incidents. As building materials evolve, safer materials are being used in our industry. For example, you have the processing of stone and the exposure of dust, which is still continuously happening at the current stage. However, with our PPE now, we're trying to minimize that exposure. With all hazardous materials, any materials that we use MSDS or material safety data sheets. One of the key materials that we have moved around from or evolved from was the use of asbestos. It was one of the highly hazardous materials, and just give me 1 second. In the 1980s, it was slowly phased out. And in 2003, there was a complete banning on the use of that hazardous material due to the side effects from future use. Another key strategy or way that we minimize incidents is Australian Work Health and Safety Strategy 2012 to 2022. It's a nationwide scale which involves all construction personnel. There's 3 targets, which includes reducing worker fatalities by 20%, reducing incident rates of claims by 30%, and reduction in claims resulting in time off work due to musculoskeletal disorders, etc. There are 7 key areas that they're trying to 7 action areas, which include supply chains and networks, health and safety by design, health and safety capabilities, research and evaluation, leadership and culture, government, and responsive and effective regulatory framework. So far, as of 2018, they had a review of the strategy in place and seeing if these targets are being met, which most of them were. This strategy is currently being reviewed for the future 10-year period. We're not sure exactly when that would start, but it'll probably be 2022 to 2032 or period, etc. The old period was from 2002 to 2012. So some of the findings that I found were all the studies that have been given on measures to minimize incidents of construction industries could be combined together to find out what's the best measure to take place or how these measures can be used together in the industry. Another key finding or item that we found out was that the measures identified did not actually test for the results of what the safe work practice would include or what that measure would do, what are the results from that measure being implemented. There was not much of a comparison to seeing which one worked the best, which item is perhaps the best one to use, or is it a combination, or what's the level at the moment. Currently, there's a careless attitudes to implement the measures due to safety culture in New South Wales and Australia. And there is also a large gap in what is the best measure to implement and how to reduce the risk in the most efficient way. So I'm at the end now, just concluding final slide. So most of these items have already been implemented in the construction industry: safety culture, safety climate. Our toolbox talks are becoming more and more regular. You have your swims, which are always being used for main sites, etc. You have your PPE, which must be worn or used in most sites nowadays. Technology and design advancements are still a far way off. I'm not sure if that will be in the next strategy or when that will sort of become more evolved or more of a method that we're using to minimize our risk. The materials have always been continuously improving, our tools, our machinery, the way we do our work. Some of the, new machinery that they're coming out now to protect the person, even wearing PPE, like vibration mitigation, etc. And the Australian strategy is another method that they're continuously trying to update, make it more relevant to where we are. The most popular, method that they're using are the swim, safety culture, and the correct use of PPE. Technology advancements are still a while away from being used. And the hardest part or the recommendation is, how do we actually test these results on construction site? How do we test if swims are the best method to use on construction sites to minimize incidents? What's the impact of using a swims on a site? What's the impact of using a PPE? And how do we actually go about testing that? Now, the record, the knowledge used in this presentation and the research work can be used by all work health and safety personnel, anyone in the construction industry that are looking to further improve their safety on sites. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you so much, Anoush. Anyone have questions? I'm going to ask my question at the end.
Thank you, Anoush. No questions. Sorry, no questions for me.
All right. So I have two questions, actually, Anoush.
Yep.
You've mentioned the use of 3D and 4D technology as part of the training process for bringing more safety in construction sites.
Yep.
I was just wondering if that 4D technology is similar to the VR video type of things, those headsets we wear for the VR. Is that the same thing, or is it a type of another technology?
Yeah, so the 4D, that's part of it, the virtual reality sort of work. The other item which I focused mainly was the use of using a CAD software where you could actually design a project and use a project schedule. So you could actually watch a mini video of that project coming to life with the schedule. Okay,
because we are actually collaborating with the Russian Technology Institute. They're really focused on education and VR together. They're training high school students with their VR headsets. And that was like kind of relevant to your presentation. It can be a really effective way because, like you said, once people can get a better understanding of the whole work process on site, that can reduces the health risks a lot. So the other question I had was related to the regulations and the Australian standards regarding reducing the health risk. Is it something like a monitoring process or putting more safety personnel on site? And the other question was that how is it going to financially make sense for the like main contractor?
I mean, I think at the current stage, safety is a big item that they're looking at sites. Most larger sites nowadays have a safety officer on site, which are implementing all these items for their personnel to reduce the incidents that occur. In future, I'm not sure how big the safety team will become on the site, or will they become more office-based, etc. Safety is sort of one of those industries where currently there is a high demand for those personnel to work on site, showcasing what are those safe practices, your safe talks, your inductions, etc. And how do we move away from, the sites without an induction on them, or how do we involve more technology into that induction stage with the safety officer? For example, could we use an electronic form where they could, do that induction part instead of having a safety officer on site?
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll just
Any questions from Yuan Chen? Apparently not. Okay, so hello.
Yep. Sure.
Guess to make you host.
Thank you.
Anoush should be making you host now, because he's the host now.
You should be able to share now.
Yes, I can share my screen.